Captain Jake Morrison thought he was just buying supplies at the alien market. He never expected a royal princess to fall to her knees and beg him to make her his concubine. The morning sun shone through the massive windows of Kepler Station as Jake walked through the alien quarter. The space station was huge, built like a city floating between the stars. Humans and aliens lived together here, trading goods from across the galaxy. Jake needed supplies for his cargo ship. Food, fuel, spare parts, the usual things. He was a simple trader, moving goods between human colonies and alien worlds. Nothing fancy, but it paid the bills and kept him free. At 35, Jake had been trading for 12 years. He knew how to bargain with different alien species, how to avoid trouble, and how to spot a good deal. Today felt like any other day. The alien market was busy and loud. Vendors called out in dozens of languages while translator devices tried to keep up. Strange smells filled the air, some good, some terrible. Jake had learned to breathe through his mouth in certain sections. He stopped at a food vendor run by a friendly Zephyrian with 4 arms. The blue-skinned alien could cook 3 meals at once while counting money with his 4th hand. "Captain Jake!" the vendor called out. "Good to see you again. Fresh imports from the outer rim today." "Thanks, Vel. I need protein bars and water recyclers," Jake replied, checking his shopping list. As they talked business, Jake heard shouting from deeper in the market. Not unusual. Aliens argued about prices all the time. But this sounded different. Desperate. A crowd was gathering near the fancy section where rich aliens shopped. Jake could see people pointing and talking in excited whispers. "What's happening over there?" Jake asked Vel. The Zephyrian's 4 eyes widened. "Oh, very strange thing. Caltharian princess with small child. She is, how you say, begging people for help." "Begging?" "Yes, very unusual. Caltharians are proud people. Royal family never begs." Vel shook his head sadly. Something must be very wrong. Jake's curiosity got the better of him. He paid for his supplies and walked toward the crowd. In the center of the gathering, Jake saw her. The woman was clearly alien but beautiful in a way that made humans stop and stare. Her skin was pale blue like morning sky, and her hair was silver white, flowing down her back. She wore clothes that had once been expensive, but now looked worn and dirty. But what made Jake's heart stop was the small child beside her. The little girl looked maybe 8 years old with the same blue skin as her mother. But the child was obviously sick. She leaned heavily against the woman, too weak to stand alone. Dark circles surrounded her large, sad eyes. The woman was speaking to different aliens in the crowd, but they all shook their heads and walked away. Jake could see the desperation growing on her face with each rejection. Then she saw Jake. Their eyes met across the crowd. Jake didn't understand what he saw in her gaze. Hope mixed with shame, desperation mixed with pride. She stared at him for a long moment, then made a decision that shocked everyone. The alien woman fell to her knees in front of Jake. The crowd went silent. Even the translators seemed confused, making strange beeping sounds. "Please," she said in accented English, her voice like music despite the fear in it. "I am Princess Zara Veltar of the Caltharian Empire. I have nothing left to offer except myself. Take me as your concubine, and I will serve you faithfully." Jake felt his mouth drop open. Around him, aliens gasped and whispered. Some looked scandalized, others seemed confused. What? Jake stammered. The princess, Zara, kept talking, desperation making her words come faster. "I can cook, clean, care for your ship. I know 17 languages and the trade routes to 40 systems. I ask only that you help my daughter. She needs medicine, food, a safe place to heal." Jake looked down at the sick child, who was now also kneeling beside her mother. The little girl's eyes were fever-bright but determined. "Mama," the child whispered. "Maybe the human will help us." "I don't understand," Jake said, trying to process what was happening. "You're a princess. Don't you have money, guards, family?" Pain flashed across Zara's face. "No longer. I have been cast out, exiled. My daughter and I have nothing except what we carry." Jake knelt down so he was at eye level with them. The crowd pressed closer, everyone wanting to hear this strange conversation. "What kind of medicine does your daughter need?" he asked gently. "Thyridian serum," Zara replied. "For blood sickness. It cost 5,000 credits. Jake whistled softly. That was more money than most people on the station made in a year. And you think becoming my concubine would solve this problem? In my culture, concubine has protection, status. Better than slavery, better than death. Zara's voice shook. I know humans do not understand our ways, but I have nothing else to trade. Jake looked around at the watching crowd. Some aliens nodded like this made sense. Others looked disapproving. The few humans in the crowd seemed as confused as Jake felt. Ma'am, Jake said carefully, I don't think you understand human culture either. We don't really do the concubine thing. Zara's face crumpled like he had hit her. Then, you refuse, even for my daughter's life? Before Jake could answer, new voices cut through the crowd. Harsh, commanding voices speaking in what Jake assumed was the Caltharian language. Zara's head snapped up in terror. No, she breathed. They found us. Through the crowd, Jake could see armed figures pushing their way forward. Soldiers in dark armor, carrying weapons that hummed with energy. Who are they? Jake asked. Warlord Cruex's men, Zara whispered, pulling her daughter closer. They have come to take us back. The child whimpered and pressed her face against her mother's shoulder. Jake felt something shift in his chest. He had never been the heroic type. He was just a trader who minded his own business. But looking at this terrified mother and her sick child, he made a decision that would change his life forever. Get behind me, he told Zara quietly. What? You asked for help, Jake said, standing up and facing the approaching soldiers. Let's see what we can work out. The crowd began to scatter as the armed aliens got closer. But Jake Morrison stood his ground, a simple human trader protecting an alien princess and her daughter from forces he didn't understand. He was about to learn that helping strangers could be the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. Jake learned that helping a princess could make him an enemy of an empire. The soldiers stopped when they saw Jake standing between them and Princess Zara. Their leader was a tall Caltharian, with red markings painted on his blue skin, battle scars that meant he had killed many enemies. Human, the soldier said in broken English, move away from the traitor princess. This does not concern your species. Maybe it does now, Jake replied, trying to sound braver than he felt. The soldier's hand moved to his energy weapon. Around them, the few remaining aliens in the market backed away quickly. No one wanted to be caught in a fight between Caltharian warriors and a stubborn human. Jake, Zara whispered behind him, please do not make them angry. They will hurt you. They'll have to go through me to get to you and your daughter, Jake said quietly. The lead soldier laughed, but it was not a happy sound. Foolish human, you protect exile who has shamed her entire family. Why don't you tell me what she did that was so terrible? Jake asked. Before the soldier could answer, station security arrived. 3 human officers in blue uniforms pushed through the crowd, their faces showing they did not want to deal with this problem. What's going on here? Demanded Lieutenant Torres, the security chief. Domestic dispute, the Caltharian soldier replied smoothly. Princess is property of Warlord Cruex. We take her home now. She's not property, Jake said firmly. She's a person asking for help. Torres looked between the heavily armed aliens and the single human trader. Jake could see the lieutenant doing math in his head. 1 human versus trained Caltharian soldiers was not good odds. Captain Morrison, Torres said carefully, maybe you should step back and let these people handle their own affairs. These people include a sick child who needs medicine, Jake replied. Torres glanced down at little Kira, who was barely staying conscious in her mother's arms. Even the hard security officer's face softened when he saw the child. Look, Torres said to the soldiers, you can't just take people from this station by force. There are laws here. Caltharian law says princess belongs to her betrothed, the lead soldier replied. Human law means nothing to us. It means something to me, Jake said. The standoff continued for several tense minutes. More security officers arrived, but so did more Caltharian soldiers. The situation was getting dangerous. Finally, Torres made a decision that probably saved lives. Everyone back off, he ordered. Captain Morrison, take the princess and her daughter to Docking Bay 7. You have 1 hour to sort this out before I have to follow galactic treaty law. What does that mean? Jake asked. It means in 1 hour, I have to hand them over to the Caltharians, unless you can give me a legal reason not to. The soldiers looked angry but backed away. They could not fight station security without starting a war between species. Jake helped Zara and Kira to his small cargo ship in the docking bay. The princess moved like someone who had not eaten well in days, and her daughter could barely walk. Inside his ship's small medical bay, Jake gave Kira some basic medicine to help with her fever. It was not the expensive cure she needed, but it would help for now. "Now," Jake said, sitting across from Zara, "tell me the whole story. What really happened to you?" Zara was quiet for a long moment, holding her sleeping daughter. When she finally spoke, her voice was full of pain. "I was engaged to marry Warlord Cruex since I was very young. Arranged marriage for political alliance between our families. I accepted this. It is our way." "But something changed," Jake guessed. "Yes, Cruex conquered the Theta colonies last year. He killed millions of innocent people, men, women, children, just for their resources." Zara's silver eyes filled with tears. "When I saw the reports, I told my father I could not marry such a monster." "What did your father say?" "He said the alliance was more important than my feelings. That Cruex's methods did not matter as long as our empire grew stronger." Zara's voice became bitter. "When I refused to go through with the wedding, my father declared me dead to the family. Stripped of all titles, money, protection." Jake felt anger growing in his chest. "He threw you out for having a conscience? In Caltharian culture, family honor comes before personal feelings. By refusing the marriage, I shamed our entire bloodline." Zara looked down at her daughter. "Kira became exiled too, just for being my child." "That's insane," Jake said. "Perhaps, but it is our law." Zara met his eyes. "That is why I offered to become your concubine. In my culture, concubine has legal protection, status above servant but below wife. It would give Kira and me safety under your name. But I'm not Caltharian. Why would your laws matter? Because you are ship captain. In space, captain's law is strongest law. If you claimed us as part of your crew, even Cruex could not touch us without challenging you directly." Jake rubbed his forehead, trying to understand. "And the concubine thing?" "Is the only way unmarried Caltharian female can join another's household with honor intact." Zara's cheeks turned darker blue with embarrassment. "I know humans do not have such customs, but I had no other choice." "What would it mean exactly, this concubine arrangement?" "I would serve your household, help with ship duties, provide companionship if you wished. In return, you would protect and provide for me and my daughter." Jake stood up and paced around the small medical bay. "This was way more complicated than buying supplies and trading cargo. There has to be another way," he said. "There is not." Zara's voice was firm. "Cruex will not give up. He loses face if his bride escapes. He will chase us across the galaxy before he lets me go free." "What about your alliance government? Can't they help?" "They sided with my father. I am officially dead to them." Zara stood up carefully, trying not to wake Kira. "Jake Morrison, I know this is strange to you, but please think of my daughter. She will die without proper medicine." Jake looked at the sleeping child. Kira was so small, so fragile. Her fever had broken, but she was still very sick. "How long does she have?" he asked quietly. "Perhaps 1 week without treatment, maybe 2. Jake felt the weight of a life in his hands. He had never wanted this responsibility. All he wanted was to trade cargo and live simply. But looking at this desperate mother and her dying daughter, he knew he could not just walk away. "Okay," he said finally, "but we do this the human way, not the Caltharian way." "I do not understand." "No concubine arrangements. You and Kira join my crew as equals. Partners, not servants. We figure out how to get her medicine and keep you both safe." Zara stared at him with wide silver eyes. "You would do this? Even though it brings you nothing but trouble?" "Yeah," Jake said, surprising himself. "I guess I would." Before Zara could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Jake's communicator crackled to life with Lieutenant Torres' voice. "Captain Morrison, you need to know. A Caltharian battle cruiser just dropped out of hyperspace. Warlord Cruex himself is coming aboard the station." Jake felt his heart sink. He had just made the most dangerous decision of his life, and it was about to get much worse. Warlord Cruex had conquered 12 worlds. One human trader shouldn't have been a problem. The massive Caltharian battlecruiser docked at Kepler Station like a predator claiming its territory. Through the viewport of his cargo ship, Jake could see the warship's dark hull bristling with weapons that could destroy the entire station in minutes. He brought his flagship, Zara whispered, her face pale with fear. The destroyer of worlds. He only uses that ship when he plans to kill everyone who opposes him. Jake checked his sidearm, a simple human pistol that would be useless against alien battle armor, but it made him feel slightly better to have it. How many troops does he usually travel with? Jake asked. 200 elite warriors, all veterans of his conquest campaigns. Zara held her sleeping daughter closer. Jake, you must leave us here and go. He will kill you just for helping us. Not happening, Jake said firmly. We're in this together now. The station's communication system crackled to life. A deep, commanding voice filled every speaker on Kepler Station, speaking in the Caltharian language first, then switching to accented English. I am Warlord Cruex, conqueror of 12 worlds, master of the Outer Rim. I have come for what belongs to me. Return Princess Zara Veltar and her offspring immediately, or this station will be destroyed. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. The warlord's voice carried the authority of someone who had never been disobeyed and lived to tell about it. Citizens of Kepler Station, the voice continued, you have 1 hour to deliver the traitor princess. Anyone who helps her will be considered an enemy of the Caltharian Empire. Jake's communicator buzzed. Lieutenant Torres' stressed voice came through clearly. Morrison, get to the station commander's office now and bring the princess. 20 minutes later, Jake sat in the commander's office with Zara and little Kira. Commander Walsh, a tired-looking woman in her 50s, paced behind her desk like a caged animal. Lieutenant Torres stood by the door, his hand resting on his weapon. Across from them sat the most dangerous being Jake had ever seen. Warlord Cruex was nearly 7 feet tall, with the blue skin common to Caltharians, but marked with deep red scars that formed ritual patterns across his face and arms. Each scar represented a world he had conquered, a species he had enslaved, or an enemy he had killed personally. His eyes were solid black, like staring into empty space. When he looked at Zara, she shrank back in her chair. Princess, Cruex said in perfect English, his voice like grinding metal. You have caused me great inconvenience. The wedding ceremony was scheduled for yesterday. I told you I would never marry you, Zara replied, trying to keep her voice steady. What you want is irrelevant. Your father made a treaty. You are part of that treaty. Cruex's black eyes moved to Jake. And you, human, why do you interfere in matters that do not concern your species? Jake met the warlord's gaze, fighting every instinct that told him to look away. Because someone has to. Cruex laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Brave words from someone who has never seen war. Do you know how many humans I killed when I conquered the Titan colonies? No, Jake said quietly, but I bet you remember everyone. 43,712. Cruex's smile was terrifying. I remember because I enjoyed it. Commander Walsh stepped forward, clearly desperate to avoid a bloodbath on her station. Warlord Cruex, surely we can reach some compromise here. The princess claims she has been exiled by her own family. Perhaps she is no longer bound by your treaty. Exile means nothing to me. She carries royal blood. That blood belongs to me. Cruex stood up, towering over everyone in the room. Commander, you have a choice. Hand over the princess and her spawn, or I will take them anyway and destroy your station for harboring fugitives. You can't just threaten to kill thousands of innocent people, Jake said, standing up to face the warlord. I can and I have. 12 worlds learned not to oppose me. Perhaps your species needs the same lesson. Kira began to cough, a harsh sound that filled the silent room. The little girl was getting sicker, and the stress was making it worse. Jake looked at the child, then at her terrified mother, then at the monster who wanted to drag them away. What if I challenge your claim? Jake said suddenly. Everyone in the room stared at him. Torres actually groaned out loud. What did you say? Cruex asked, his voice dangerously quiet. I said I challenge your claim to the princess and her daughter. In your culture, that means single combat, right? Zara gasped. Jake, no! He will kill you. Perhaps, Jake replied, not taking his eyes off Cruex. But at least Kira will have a chance. Warlord Cruex studied Jake like he was looking at an interesting insect. You would die for strangers? I would fight for them, Jake corrected. There's a difference. You know nothing of Caltharian combat law. Then teach me. For a long moment the room was completely silent except for Kira's labored breathing. Then Cruex began to laugh again. Very well, human. You amuse. Me, single combat it is. When you lose, and you will lose, I will kill you slowly as an example to others who might interfere with my business. And if I win, you will not win. But if I do, Cruex's smile faded. Then by Caltharian law, the princess and her offspring become yours to protect. I cannot touch them without dishonoring myself. Commander Walsh looked relieved that the station might be spared. When and where? The combat deck in 2 hours. That should give the human time to say goodbye to his life. Cruex turned to leave, then paused. Oh, inhuman. I will use traditional Caltharian weapons, energy blades and plasma shields. You may use whatever human weapons you prefer. That's not exactly fair, Torres protested. Life is not fair, Cruex replied. Death is even less so. After the warlord left, Jake slumped into his chair. What had he just done? Jake, Zara said softly. You cannot fight him. He has killed hundreds of warriors in single combat. Maybe, but I can't just let him take you and Kira. Why? Zara asked. Why would you risk your life for us? Jake looked at the sick little girl, then at her desperate mother. Because someone has to stand up to bullies, and because Kira deserves a chance to grow up free. Commander Walsh cleared her throat. Captain Morrison, I have to ask, do you have any military training? 12 years in the Colonial Marines. Did 3 tours in the Frontier Wars. Combat experience? Some. Jake didn't mention the nightmares, the friends he had lost, or the reasons he had left the military to become a peaceful trader. Torres nodded approvingly. That's something at least. It will not be enough, Zara said, tears running down her blue cheeks. Cruex is the greatest warrior in Caltharian history. Jake reached over and took her hand. Maybe. But he's never fought a human who has something to fight for. As they prepared to leave, Jake's communicator buzzed with an incoming message. It was from his old military unit. Somehow they had heard about the challenge. The message was short, but gave Jake his first real hope. Package delivered to Docking Bay 12. Give them hell, Captain. Colonel Mason. Jake smiled for the first time since this whole mess started. His old friends hadn't forgotten him, and they had sent him exactly what he would need to give the warlord the fight of his life. The greatest warrior in Caltharian history was about to learn why humans had won the Frontier Wars. The princess discovered that humans had their own way of protecting family. Jake stood in Docking Bay 12, staring at the military crate his old unit had sent. Inside was equipment he had hoped never to use again. But today it might save 2 innocent lives. Neural interface combat suit, he said to himself, reading the label. Mark 7 tactical enhancement system. Zara watched from nearby, holding Kira, who had gotten worse in the past hour. The little girl could barely keep her eyes open. What does it do? Zara asked. Makes humans faster, stronger, smarter in combat. Links my brain directly to weapons and armor systems. Jake pulled out the sleek black suit that looked more like a second skin than armor. I wore one of these during the Frontier Wars. Will it help you beat Cruex? Jake was quiet for a moment. It gives me a chance. That's all anyone can ask for. 30 minutes before the combat was scheduled to begin, Jake finished putting on the neural suit. The interface activated with a soft hum, and suddenly his mind was connected to a network of sensors, weapons, data, and tactical programs. Information flowed through his consciousness like water. Enemy movement patterns, weak points in Caltharian anatomy, optimal combat strategies. The suit's AI spoke directly to his thoughts in a calm female voice. Combat systems online, Captain Morrison. All neural pathways synchronized. Jake flexed his hands, feeling the suit respond to his movements like it was part of his body. He had missed this feeling. The perfect unity of human intuition and advanced technology. "Jake," Zara said softly, "there is something I must tell you before the fight." "What is it?" "If you win today, Kira and I truly will belong to you by Caltharian law. You would have the right to do anything you wished with us." Jake looked at her seriously. "And what do you think I would do?" "I do not know. That is what frightens me." Jake knelt down so he was eye level with both Zara and her daughter. "Let me tell you what I would do. I would make sure Kira gets the medicine she needs. I would help you both start new lives wherever you want to live. And I would never ever treat either of you as property." Tears ran down Zara's blue cheeks. "Why? Why would you do so much for strangers?" "Because that's what humans do. We protect people who can't protect themselves. We stand up for what's right even when it's hard." Jake gently touched Kira's forehead, checking her fever. "And because no child should suffer for the crimes of adults." Kira opened her silver eyes and looked at Jake with the wisdom that sometimes comes to children who have seen too much pain. "Will you be my daddy if my mama can't take care of me?" she whispered. Jake felt his heart break and heal at the same time. "Yes, little one, if that's what you want." The combat arena was packed with aliens from dozens of species, all wanting to see the legendary warlord Cruex fight a single human. Jake walked onto the platform wearing his neural combat suit, feeling the weight of hundreds of eyes upon him. Cruex entered from the opposite side, wearing traditional Caltharian battle armor that gleamed with energy shields. His weapons, twin plasma blades that could cut through steel, hummed with deadly power. "Last chance to surrender, human," Cruex called out. "I might let you live if you beg properly." "Thanks, but I'll pass," Jake replied, activating his suit's weapon systems. Commander Walsh acted as referee, reading the combat rules in both English and Caltharian. "This is single combat to determine custody of Princess Zara Veltar and her child. Fight continues until one combatant yields or dies. Begin." Cruex attacked immediately, moving faster than any being that large should be able to move. His plasma blades carved burning trails through the air as he tried to end the fight quickly. But Jake wasn't there anymore. The neural suit had enhanced his reflexes and speed beyond normal human limits. He rolled under Cruex's attack, came up behind the warlord, and fired his pulse rifle at point-blank range. The energy bolt bounced harmlessly off Cruex's shields, but the warlord spun around with surprise in his black eyes. "Impossible," Cruex growled. "No human moves that fast." "You haven't met many humans, have you?" Jake replied, already moving to a new position. The fight became a deadly dance. Cruex had superior strength and weapons, but Jake had speed and tactics. Every time the warlord tried to corner him, Jake used the arena's obstacles and his suit's mobility to stay one step ahead. "Stop running and fight like a warrior," Cruex roared, frustrated that he couldn't land a killing blow. "I'm fighting like a human," Jake replied, sliding under another swing and firing at Cruex's back. The crowd was getting excited. This wasn't the quick execution they had expected. The human was actually making the great warlord Cruex work for his victory. But Jake knew he couldn't keep this up forever. The neural suit was powerful, but it drained energy with every enhanced movement. He needed to end this fight soon. That's when he remembered something from his military training. Caltharian warriors were taught to fight with honor, following strict combat traditions. But humans had learned to fight dirty. Jake deliberately stumbled, pretending his suit had malfunctioned. Cruex saw what he thought was an opening and charged forward with both plasma blades raised for a killing strike. At the last second, Jake activated his suit's emergency systems and rolled directly at Cruex's feet. The warlord tripped over him and went down hard, his weapons skittering across the arena floor. Before Cruex could recover, Jake was on top of him with a monomolecular knife at the warlord's throat, a blade so sharp it could cut through alien armor like paper. "Yield," Jake said quietly. Cruex stared up at him with shock and something that might have been respect. "You fought without honor. I fought to win. There's a difference." For a moment, Jake thought Cruex might refuse to surrender. But then the warlord looked up at the crowd, at Princess Zara holding her dying daughter, and at the human who had outsmarted him. "I yield," Cruex said loud enough for everyone to hear. The arena exploded with cheers and shocked gasps. Jake Morrison, a simple cargo trader, had just defeated the greatest warrior in Caltharian history. As Jake helped Cruex to his feet, the warlord spoke quietly so only Jake could hear. "You have won the princess and her child, human. But know this, I will remember you. And someday, we will meet again." "I'm counting on it," Jake replied. As they walked toward where Zara waited with tears of joy streaming down her face, Jake felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. He was no longer just a trader trying to make an honest living. He was now the protector of an alien princess and her daughter. And somehow that felt exactly right. But their troubles were far from over. Winning the fight was only the beginning of their new life together. On the frontier, Jake learned that some families are chosen, not born. 3 months after the fight with Warlord Cruex, Jake's cargo ship landed on New Haven, a small colony world on the edge of human space. It was the kind of place where people didn't ask too many questions about your past, as long as you worked hard and caused no trouble. Kira ran ahead of Jake and Zara as they walked through the colony's main street. The little girl was completely healthy now, thanks to the medicine Jake had bought with his savings. Her laughter filled the air as she chased a butterfly between the market stalls. "Daddy Jake, look," Kira called out, using the name she had started calling him a month ago. "The butterfly has 4 wings instead of 2. "That's because we're on a different planet, sweetheart," Jake called back. "Everything grows differently here." Zara walked beside Jake, wearing simple human clothes instead of her old royal robes. She looked happier than he had ever seen her, peaceful in a way that had nothing to do with wealth or titles. "She has adapted well to human customs," Zara observed, watching her daughter play. "Kids are good at that," Jake replied. "Adults have a harder time changing." "Some adults," Zara corrected with a smile. "Others surprise you." They had spent the 3 months traveling together, learning about each other's cultures while Kira recovered her health. Jake discovered that Zara was incredibly smart. She spoke 17 languages, understood complex mathematics, and had a natural gift for negotiating trade deals. Zara learned that humans valued choice above tradition, equality above hierarchy, and that families could be built from love instead of blood or law. "Jake," she said as they walked, "I need to tell you something important." "What is it?" "Yesterday, I received a message from the Caltharian embassy. My father is dead." Jake stopped walking. "I'm sorry. How do you feel about that?" "Relieved," Zara admitted. "He died in a war with the same rebels he wanted me to marry Cruex to fight. The irony is, appropriate." "What does that mean for you and Kira?" "It means my exile is officially over. The new emperor, my younger brother, has offered to restore my titles and wealth if I return home." Jake felt his heart sink, though he tried not to show it. Of course she would want to go back to her real life. Who would choose to be a trader's family when they could be royalty again? "That's wonderful," he said, forcing a smile. "When do you leave?" Zara stopped walking and took his hand. "I sent my brother a message this morning. I told him thank you but no." "What? Why?" "Because my home is not a place or a title," Zara said, her silver eyes bright with certainty. "My home is with the man who fought a warlord to protect my daughter. My home is with the human who taught me that families are built on love, not law." Jake stared at her, hardly daring to hope. "Are you sure? You're giving up being a princess?" "I am not giving up anything," Zara replied. "I am choosing everything that matters." Before Jake could respond, Kira came running back to them with the butterfly perched on her finger. "Mama, Daddy Jake, look, it likes me." Jake knelt down to examine the colorful insect. "It's beautiful, just like you." "Can we keep it?" "Butterflies need to be free to fly," Jake explained gently. "Just like people." "But it can visit us, right?" "Anytime it wants to," Jake promised. As they watched, the butterfly spread its 4 wings and flew away toward the colony's growing fields. Kira waved goodbye until it disappeared among the crops. That evening, Jake sat on the porch of the small house he had bought for them on the edge of the colony. Zara sat beside him, while Kira played with other human and alien children in the yard. I have a confession, Zara said quietly. What's that? When I first offered to become your concubine, I was not thinking clearly. I was desperate and scared, willing to trade my freedom for safety. Jake nodded. I know. Anyone would have done the same in your situation. But now, after living with you these months, learning your ways, Zara took his hand. If you asked me to marry you the human way, as equals, as partners, I would say yes without hesitation. Jake felt his heart start beating faster. Is that a hint? It is whatever you want it to be, Zara replied with a smile. Jake stood up and walked to where Kira was playing. Hey, little one, can I ask you something important? Sure, Daddy. Jake, how would you feel if your mama and I got married, really married the human way? Kira's face lit up like a star. Would that make us a real family? We're already a real family, Jake said, picking her up, but it would make it official. Then yes, 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 Kira shouted, hugging him tightly. Jake carried her back to the porch where Zara waited with happy tears in her eyes. Well? Zara asked. Jake got down on one knee, still holding Kira. Princess Zara Veltar, would you do me the honor of becoming my wife? Not my concubine, not my property, but my equal partner in life. Yes, Zara said simply. Yes, I will. As they hugged together on the porch, Jake marveled at how much his life had changed. 3 months ago, he had been a lonely trader with no family and no purpose beyond making enough money to survive. Now he had a brilliant wife who made every day an adventure, a daughter who filled his heart with joy, and a home where love mattered more than law. 6 months later, Jake's small trading business had grown into the most successful shipping company in the sector. Zara's knowledge of alien cultures and languages made her the perfect partner, while Kira charmed customers from a dozen different species. They were eating dinner together when Jake's old military communicator buzzed with an emergency signal. Colonel Mason's voice crackled through the static. Jake, we've got a situation. There's a refugee ship full of families fleeing the Centauri conflict. They need help, but no one else will take them. Too dangerous, too controversial. Jake looked at Zara and Kira, then at the home they had built together. How many refugees? He asked. 200. Mostly women and children. They'll die if someone doesn't help them. Zara reached across the table and took Jake's hand. What does your heart tell you? Jake smiled. His heart told him exactly what to do. Colonel, tell them Jake Morrison is on his way, and Colonel, I'm bringing help. As they prepared to leave, on another rescue mission, Jake realized something important. He had thought his story ended when he defeated Cruex and won his family's freedom. But actually, it was just the beginning. There were a lot of people in the galaxy who needed someone to stand up for them. And Jake Morrison had learned that sometimes being human meant you couldn't walk away from people who needed help, even when it was dangerous. Especially when it was right. Ready, family? Jake asked as they boarded their ship. Ready, Daddy, Kira said, taking her place at the navigation console where she had been learning to plot courses. Ready, husband, Zara said, sitting at the communication station where her language skills would be needed. As their ship lifted off toward the stars, Jake smiled. They weren't just a family anymore. They were humanity's representatives to the galaxy, showing every species they met that humans would fight for the innocent, protect the weak, and never abandon those in need. And that was a pretty good way to live.